Oh, welcome everybody. My name is Gerhard Schwartner. I'm the founder and publisher of Selling Power Magazine. And today we have a special guest from Chicago, Ken Babcock, who's the co-founder and CEO of Tango. Welcome, Ken.
Thanks, Gerhard. Good to be here.
Tell us about Tango.
Yeah, so Tango, we really started as the easiest way to create documentation of your internal process. So we're a browser extension. We live in the browser. We help people document all their internal tools. That product has since evolved. We started with documentation. Then we moved towards what we call our Guide Me product, where we guide people in the browser through how to execute those tasks that are documented. Um, and very soon, in a matter of probably 2 weeks here, we're going to launch actually our agentic AI product, where we're taking still that foundation of documentation and turning it into what we're calling hybrid automations that keep humans in the loop, make sure that there's observability, visibility, and that the end user can actually bring in some of that context into the workflow. So we've been working on this for a long time. We're pretty excited about it.
So there are many AI agents out there. What will make yours different?
Well, I think that the biggest thing for us is, what we set out to build is something that acknowledges where our users want to go long term. That's what I call the excitement around AI and agents, but is very grounded in the reality of where our customers are. So, we have the benefit, compared to a lot of other agent companies, of having built a business for the last 5 years, and we've seen workflows that people create. To the tune of 4 million plus workflows. And so what we've seen and what we've understood is that there's a lot of underlying user behavior that dictates where people are on the AI adoption curve. And so our product, being very focused on keeping the human in the loop, being very focused on allowing people to have these sort of human checkpoints along the way, sort of removes this feeling of AI being a black box, which I think is scaring a lot of people today.
Right. So what was historically, workflow is a big challenge in any sales organization. What would you characterize as the top three challenges that sales leaders are experiencing with workflow?
Yeah, the only three. We'll start
Right.
with three.
The top three.
Yeah, I mean the biggest one, and it's a stat that you hear a lot, is that 2/3 of sales reps' time is spent on administrative busy work, and so that's really the logging the follow-ups in the CRM, data entry, making sure that like contracts are going out on time and reflect all the right information. It's a lot of this stuff that takes the rep away from selling, building relationships, building trust. And most sales leaders we talk to want their reps to be doing that, want them to be building relationships and building trust. And if 2/3 of your day is taken up with busy work, there's a lot of downstream impacts that has not just on your ability to form relationships with your customers, but also your ability to hit your revenue goals. Right? It's almost
Yeah.
like a Gantt chart, right? Okay, if 2/3 of our time is taken up with busy work, you can only move so fast on the other stuff. So that's number one, and then the other two I'll be quicker with. The second one is really for a lot of CROs and sales leaders. They have an idea, maybe theoretical, maybe aspirational, of like what their sales process needs to be, and typically that's a very unique idea that's tied back to the business. But you're relying on tools, your CRM, your CPQ systems, to sort of translate that unique process, and that's where a lot of them fall short. Is it's really hard to take a sales process and integrate it into your day-to-day operations. And then I think the last piece is, really the impact of data hygiene and data quality, and that comes back to this first point of busy work. A lot of that busy work is data entry. I think in a couple years, we're going to say that it was completely crazy that we had people entering data manually, and that was informing forecasts, that was informing pipeline, that was informing how we work deals and which deals we work. I just think that'll become obsolete.
So Tango is taking that guesswork and that tedium out of the sales process, and it's sort of a system that frees the salesperson from all those tasks so they can focus on what's important, which is the customer.
Yeah, and look, we're also realistic about, we don't necessarily aim to automate everything end to end.
Yeah.
Um, some things probably, but we want to bring the human in for those key moments where they need to make a decision or need to bring in context. But in those moments, we can also provide guardrails. We call them pipeline rules, or this idea that, hey, for this field, we want to add a validation here, and now you don't have to do that in Apex code in the back of your CRM with the developer's help. You can do it via Tango, and you can be a non-technical user.
Well, you're going to share your expertise with our audience at the Sales Transformation Summit next week. I would love to get your views on AI adoption. Um, what is the challenge? Why is it so difficult to integrate AI as part of a central strategy to accelerate revenues?
We're early on the adoption curve. I think if you listen to media hype cycles, and maybe you listen to venture capitalists and where they're going with products and where they're putting their money, again, it's not super grounded in the reality of where users are. I think a lot of people have optimism for what AI can do for their business, and they can see it, they can connect the dots, but I don't think that there are products out there that are acknowledging where we are on the adoption curve. And so today, there's huge promise in these AI products. There's immense pressure for sales leaders to have an AI strategy, and a lot of that is driven by the fact that they know that their competing CRO, their competing head of sales, is also developing an AI strategy. So it's important to have that, but you need to really acknowledge, like, where are my reps? Where's my rev ops team? Where's my go to market ops team? And what's going to be realistic for our business to actually adopt and trust? That's the biggest piece, is trust. Um, the black box nature of a lot of AI agent products today doesn't aim to build trust with the end user, and so that's really what we're hoping to do.
So tell us a little bit more about the roadblocks on that adoption curve besides ignorance.
Yeah, it's not even ignorance. I would say the biggest one is just, how do you handle sort of the complexity of these workflows? I think our approach is acknowledging that there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of decisions that get made that uh, you know don't necessarily come from the information that's just on a page. And so we're allowing users to say, hey, for a majority of this workflow, we can automate it. We can we can be that agent for you. But there's going to be certain things where, like, you need a person to go in and observe, you need a person to go in and validate. So those checkpoints are going to become pretty critical, and it allows us to handle more complex workflows. Instead of saying, okay, here's a 25-step workflow, we're going to automate the whole thing, we're instead saying, here's a 25-step workflow, we're actually going to need you at 3 points of that workflow. And that'll still drive a ton of efficiency, but allow the agent to handle more complexity.
So I think, to make an analogy with driving, there are now self-driving cars.
Yep.
You cannot have self-driving workflows without careful supervision.
Yep. I actually think it's a great analogy, Gerhard, because my most of my career I spent at Uber before Tango, and was pretty immersed in the self-driving landscape. And if you actually think back and remember, we were talking about full self-driving being available, and I think it was promised at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. That's we were like,
I
that was where
remember
we were
that.
going to head.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we're at with AI and agents too. We're expecting something to happen very dramatically very soon. Um, but there's a lot of difficulty in actually getting to that future. So the comparison that I would make to self-driving is, there's a full self-driving future, but there are also all these benefits along the way around assisted driving. And so we think of our product as like, can we leverage that aspirational future self-driving workflows, but build kind of the like assisted driving along the way that's actually going to drive real adoption.
I think it's a great idea. I like that. The assisted workflow driving.
Yeah, we got to figure out a better tagline. I don't know if that rolls off
Yeah,
the tongue, but I hear
yeah.
you.
But also, with driving, it changes the behavior of the driver. And so
Mhm.
if they have assisted driving, maybe they use that extra time to look at their iPhone. So it, and then people get into accidents.
Mhm.
There is a stat that I just read that those self-driving car accidents come in the first year where people have not made the connection yet on how much
Yep.
supervision is necessary. So if we translate that into the world of sales, what kind of shift in behavior is needed to teach salespeople to keep their eye on the ball?
I think it's a great question. I think sales leaders need to think about how they train their reps to be more creative and more strategic. Um, I think this is true for RevOps as well. Is with all these administrative tasks, all the firefighting, you sort of block yourself from being able to take on those creative and strategic tasks. And so I think that the impetus now is on sales leaders to kind of take their creative strategic minds and figure out how to scale that to their org. How do you think about, okay, not just do I log the right information in the CRM, but for that next call, what's my approach? What's my tone? How do I want to show up? What's the outcome that I want to drive? And really being strategic about the accounts that you're working as opposed to just making sure the data all lives in your system of record.
Well, it brings up another question, which is that there are a number of AI um, native CRM solutions out there. What will that do to the legacy CRM system that have been on the market for the last 20 years? Will they become obsolete?
They won't become obsolete. And I think the answer is actually in your question. Salesforce, obviously is the most predominant, but even HubSpot, they've been around for a long time. And there's a lot of change management required to move on from your CRM, your system of record. It's very daunting for folks to even think about that. So in the near term, I don't think they'll be obsolete. Now, I have a lot of admiration for like Christopher O'Donnell at Day AI, who actually helped build HubSpot's CRM. Now is building Day AI, which is an AI native. Um, I would almost say like CRM builder, and I think that's going to be really powerful for companies that are like maybe at the precipice of evaluating. Okay, what do we need as a CRM? Or maybe they are ready to make the switch, but we've acknowledged that Salesforce has been around for a while. There's a lot of data in Salesforce. There's a lot of customers. Trying to steer that ship is going to be really hard. And so, how do we provide some of these like AI capabilities that exist in a Day AI or an Attio? How do we provide those via Tango on top of your existing tools so you don't have to undergo this crazy change management? And how do we actually amplify um, some of the underlying CRMs? We're lucky to have Salesforce and HubSpot as investors in Tango, and I think the reality is like that ecosystem. It'll take a while to really change, and so we want to build on top of those tools.
Right. So help us focus our thinking on that rapidly evolving explosion of AI solutions. it's hard to keep track. We have identified about 500 or 600 now AI solutions that are all designed to make salespeople more effective. So how do you think about this? How do you approach that? Because it's really entering a maze, and you don't know what's around the corner.
So my ask to sales leaders would be this: when you're evaluating these tools, remember that the barrier to entry in sort of creating an AI native tool has been dramatically lowered. And so there's going to be a lot of new entrants. It makes sense why there's a bunch of new sales tools, particularly in AI, coming on board, um, for the exact problems that I shared. And so, my ask to sales leaders would be, think about what's the unique insight that this company is bringing. Have they built a business that helps them understand these workflows better? I mean, that's where we're positioned, obviously, so I'm biased, but do they have this unique insight? Do they have an ability to scale rapidly? Um, I think there are some more sophisticated buyers out there that do their due diligence to really understand, how long has this company been around? How will they be able to support me? And the last piece, which is sort of separate from those, is are they building with the end user in mind? Are they building tech with really high promise? Are they building something that uh, is focused on end user adoption? Which I I just feel like software in general is now in this phase where if you are not intuitive to use, if you almost don't look like a consumer application in terms of intuitiveness and ability to get started really quickly, you're going to fail. And so, for sales leaders, understand those companies, but also really evaluate the user experience and ask yourself, is someone going to adopt this? And, maybe that means like, starting a POC with that company and giving your reps access, for a short period, and understanding, hey, is this something you'd use on a daily basis? Because that's the magnitude of the problem. Like, it is a daily frequency. And so if you're not going to use it daily, it's just it's not going to be successful no matter the promises that are made.
So what are you excited about when you think about Tango 5 years from now?
A lot of things. I think 5 years from now, we are going to be interacting with our machines in a totally different way. I think we're going to be talking to our computers in natural language. I think we're going to have a series of commands that sort of initiate different workflows or different asks or different ideas that we have. My hope is maybe that we're not staring at our screens as much and fighting with software. So, Tango, I think we have the potential to be what a lot of folks are referring to as like the abstraction layer. So you've had all these tools that you fought with for so long, but Tango can live on top of them and allow them to communicate in the way that you always hoped and dreamed. So that's where we're headed. I think there's going to be a fundamental shift in just how we work and how we interact with computers. Similar to, I think there's these photos of architects before CAD was developed, huge drafting boards and drawing on pieces of paper and just warehouses for miles because of how big these drafting boards were and how much space they required. I think we're going to look back at like the modern workplace of just being desks with computers. I think we're going to look at that in a totally different way. I think we're going to expect that maybe our computers and machines kind of operate over here and do things that we need it to do. And, we're focused on other stuff. We're being more strategic. We're being more creative. Um, that's a little bit of like my hope for where the world goes. And I think Tango can play a huge role there.
Yeah, this is really amazing. I like your vision that the focus needs to be on creating a better world and make it easier for everybody. Because technology is almost like medicine, it has side effects. And sometimes the side effects can kill the joy of using that technology.
Yeah.
And to make it simple and consumer-like interfaces and have great support and great training. so that people can focus on a more creative strategy for creating customers.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I didn't have glasses 5 years ago, you know. It took looking at all these tools, you know. But no, I totally hear you. I think any entrepreneur needs to keep that top of mind. What's their view of the world and how the world needs to
Yeah.
change for the better.
Yeah. And also focus on what do you want to do and why. So
Yep.
you have a very clear goal, because um, omnidirectional companies don't go very far.
Hmm. Yep.
So I want to remind the audience, you are invited next week on Wednesday at 11:20 a.m. Eastern Time. Ken, the co-founder and CEO of Tango, will have a conversation with Leslie Venez. She's the founder of the sales-led GTM agency. And the theme is AI without the headaches, how to automate sales workflows without losing control. And we all want more of that, right?
Absolutely. And I'm excited to chat with Leslie. She's fantastic.
Well, I'm so excited that you're doing this together with Leslie. I've listened to her, and she is absolutely a powerhouse when it comes to the future of
Yep.
AI. And there will be a link below where you can sign up for free to attend the Sales Transformation Summit. And we couldn't have done it without you, Ken.
Thanks, Garrett. Happy to be here.
Thank you.